Hello. Hello, Periscope. Hello, Twitter. Hello, replay viewers. How is everybody today? Welcome in. Welcome, everybody. Wow, a lot of people here. Good to see everybody. Hey there, JC. Hello. Walking Scope. Hello, hello. As you're coming in, if you're watching live or even if you're not, please share this. Please invite followers. And if you're new to watching me, my name is Mary Grace, and you are on the Mary Grace Media channel on Periscope. If you're watching a replay on YouTube, you probably found this on Mary Grace Media on YouTube. So either way, follow, subscribe, make sure you don't miss anything in the future. And follow me also on Twitter at Mary Grace Media. So I think that's it. Oh, I also wanted to give the little disclaimer, which is that I am walking and I'm out in my neighborhood. And so you may hear cars, you may hear people going around, and that's just the nature of what I'm doing right now. I am walking live, unscripted. I'm not in a studio. So if you're hearing background noise, if you're having trouble hearing, I suggest maybe you put in some headphones. Sometimes that helps. People do tell me that it helps. So just to let you know that sometimes people comment and say they can't hear, whatever, but headphones do help. So welcome. I had some things that I wanted to talk about today, and I wanted to just give people a couple more minutes to get in. Because we've got a lot going on in our country and in the world, and there's just as usual, especially in the last 4 years, really 3 years, we've just had explosive news cycles one after the other. And ever since President Trump, then candidate Trump, announced that he was going to run for office, it just seems like every day is exciting. Since that happened, people that never watched the news before are now watching the news, are aware of what's going on. They're tracking with politics and the way that things. Yeah, it is very exciting, but it's also a little bit nerve-wracking sometimes, and that's part of what I wanted to talk about today. And so that's what brings us here. So. Again, welcome in. If you're just getting here, my name is Mary Grace. This is Mary Grace Media, and this is a live scope on Periscope, and there will be replays. There will be replays coming on other channels, including YouTube. So, somebody just asked a question, and I'll come back to that. Can you ask me that later on? So I wanted to talk a little bit today about what is happening in the news right now. As most of you know, today the House formally announced articles of impeachment against this president. And those of you who have been following this know that the articles themselves and the entire process that has happened is predicated on false pretenses. To say the least. That it's crazy. It's crazy that we're seeing this happen. If you're not aware of everything that's been happening, and if you're still watching fake news, you watch things like this and you think that it's real. You listen to the way that the Democrats talk, and you listen to and you watch their faces, and they talk about how sad they are, and they talk about how this is a dark day for America, and you're thinking, well, let's just cue up the Oscars, because these people are acting. They don't they just don't what they're doing is absolutely not true. I mean, it's all acting. You know, when Nancy Pelosi stands up and talks about what a devout Catholic she is and how she prays for the president every day, she might be, but it's just, it's hypocritical. And this is what Jesus meant when he was talking about the whitewashed tombs, when he was talking about the Pharisees and the way that they stood up and made a lot of noise about being religious and being pious, but their actions belied their words. And so that's what we're looking at. But I wanted to talk about the president specifically because, as you know, he has a rally tonight in Pennsylvania. People are there lining up. And we have to impeach this way because doing it the right way would take too long. Yeah. So I've got a lot to talk about, but the president is in Pennsylvania. And here's something that I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask, is the president worried? Is the president worried about impeachment? And for the past 3 or 4 years, I've been taking my cues from the president. Is President Trump worried about impeachment? If you think that he might be worried, I want you to watch his rally tonight. I want you to watch the rally anyway, but I want you to watch his rally, and I want you to get back to me, and I want you to tell me how he acts. What is his stance? Is he happy? Is he victorious? Does he have the mood of somebody that looks like they're about to get booted out of office and escorted out of the White House in handcuffs? What do you think? Is he worried? He seems bolder and bolder to me, too. So the other day he tweeted out and he said, if you're going to impeach me, bring it. Why does he say that? And this is review. This is review for some people. But this is review for some people, but let's see. Sometimes I have to stop to block. But what I'm saying is review, but I want to get this word out here because I'm in some of the broadcasts and I'm on Twitter and I'm seeing the comments that people are making, and we've got people that are kind of wringing their hands and saying, this is terrible. The IG report didn't do anything. The IG report didn't help us. Horowitz, might as well have not even done it. Things like that. And so, sometimes it feels like the walls are closing in and there's just a cascade of bad news. And so I wanted to address that because that's not the case at all. That's not what's happening at all. And so when you see comments, when you see people who are supposedly conservatives, who are tweeting things like, that the IG report didn't help us, things like that, it's actually not true. The IG report was necessary. Somebody was saying that yesterday on Twitter. They're going, what's the use of a inspector general? Why does an inspector general even exist? Is it just to waste our money? What is it that we use them for? And so I was just explaining, and I want to explain it to you guys too, and then we'll get back to impeachment. The inspector general is important, and there are inspector generals in many departments, not just over the FBI. It's an audit. It's like an internal audit, not internal, but it's like an audit, external audit that happens to make sure that that people are doing their jobs, and they're auditing not just the way that the job is done, but they're auditing the policies and procedures that lead to the people doing the jobs that they're doing. And so it's really important that we had the Inspector General looking into everything that happened around these FISA reports. For example, we found out that there were FISAs on 4 people, not just 2. Things like that. We also found out that there were egregious, quote, errors that were made. We would call them omissions, errors and omissions. And then one thing we found out that was really troubling was that the procedures that were in place, the procedures that were in place for the FBI, a lot of them were very lax. And that's something that Director Wray has actually already announced, that he's making changes, that they're making changes at the FBI. And so one of the reasons that these people were able to get away with what they did was because, there was definite political bias. But one of the things that the Inspector General said was that they were kind of shocked at just how lax the rules were. And that's something that you wouldn't find out without an Inspector General report, right? And I'm not going to go into too many details because there are other people who are going into details. I'm just trying to give people some perspective here and make sure that people are understanding that, we are in a good position as if we're supporting the president. And here's the other thing: even if you don't love this president, I want you to hear what I have to say, because this affects you, and it affects me, and it affects every American. Because what happened and what was revealed with the Inspector General's report on these FISA warrants, and what has been revealed during these impeachment hearings, is that there are factions within our government and within what we call the deep state who absolutely have no regard for American civil liberties. They absolutely, completely threw individual liberties out the door. And so when they started this surveillance, when they lied to get these FISA warrants, when they conducted the impeachment quote inquiry the way that they did, this is troublesome, because if you're in the opposing party, it doesn't matter where you stand. If you have this happening now, and if it's allowed to go on unchecked, then it's going to keep happening. This is not going to be the end. Do you see what I'm saying? And so if you don't understand that, if you hate this president so much that you don't understand the dangers, the inherent dangers to every single one of us, then I suggest you wake up, because you're really missing out on what's happening here. If you think that the next president who gets elected, let's just say that you call yourself a conservative, you're not even on the left. If you're a conservative and you don't like Trump, and you can't wait for him to get out of office, and you get your guy in, what makes you think that your candidate, the next person that gets elected to president, is safe? Are they? I don't think so. What makes you think that you are off limits to the kind of surveillance that was taking place against private citizens? These were private citizens that were working on the Trump campaign, and they weren't safe from the FISA warrants. These people lied to get warrants against them, and they used it. Did you guys hear me? So it's really important to understand this. This is critical that you understand that this was an assault on the liberties of every single American, and that what has been done in these FISA warrants, and with the Russia collusion hoax, and with this impeachment hoax, what has been done here is an assault on everything that we stand on as Americans. It's an assault on everything. And so that's important that you understand this, and that for that reason you become aware and you don't shrink back, because this is really critical. It's beyond the orange man bad, pussy hat, we don't like him stage. It's way beyond that. And hold on a second. Thank you for mentioning Praying Medic. I was just going to mention that. So, yeah, I blocked him. So yeah, there's the fingerprints of the people that opposed this president are all over everything. And I don't know if you guys noticed yesterday in the hearing when Nadler was trying to conduct the hearing, and he just kept banging the gavel. And he looked like he was kind of lost. Well, the man that was sitting next to him, I think it was one of the attorneys, he was actually telling him when to bang the gavel. Did you see that? He was directing him. And that actually tells you a lot right there. It tells you that, that there are people behind what's happening. There are other people driving the ship here and steering it. And so I think it's important to understand that when President Trump ran for office and when he started talking about taking down corruption, the people that got what he was saying, the people that really heard him and understood, went into full-blown panic mode because they knew that he was serious. They knew it. Anybody that's ever negotiated with him, anyone that's ever done a business deal, a real estate deal with Donald Trump knows that he was serious. And they know that he has the resources and the ability to do what he says he would do. He's a man of his word. So that's really important to understand. And keep losing the connection. It might be you. So as you tune in tonight, as you tune in and you're watching the president, I really want you to listen to him, and I want you to watch his body language, and I want you to listen to his messaging. I want you to listen to him if he does a press conference on the way to the rally, which he often does at when he's getting on Marine One, and just watch him, listen to him. Yeah. And I want you to take heart in knowing that he's got this, because the Patriots are in control. Patriots are in control. And so that's really important to understand. And the other thing I want to point out is this. If the Democrats were winning, do you think that they would have announced right after the impeachment press conference that they were signing USMCA? Wasn't that interesting? Why, after all this time, after the numerous times that the minority has tried to bring USMCA up, why would they hold a press conference? Why would Nancy Pelosi hold a press conference on that? Why wouldn't she hold a victory press conference on the impeachment? See what I mean? Hey, Norm. No, it's not that, well, she is wacky, but, right? So why would she do that? So think about it. If impeachment was the win that the Democrats thought that it would be, if the Democrats thought that impeachment was a win, why would they need to sign a deal on USMCA? Why would they need to do that? And why? So track with me here for a minute, okay? Let's think about this. So President Trump is growing in popularity. He's growing in support. His fundraising is outpacing any of theirs. And it was just announced last night that he's gaining and that he's leading any Democrat in key swing states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. And I know for a fact that the campaign has 17 states in play that they're targeting. These are swing states, what they call battleground states, and that the campaign has hired state directors in each of those states to target and go for a win in states that are either blue or on the fence. And so the numbers are out there. Last week, the jobs numbers came out, and we have the lowest unemployment in 50 years. Okay? And so yesterday, the IG report came out, and all of the media pundits, even a lot of them on the right, kept telling you that it was a big nothing burger. And, Comey was out there bloviating about how he was off scot-free and it didn't prove anything. And Lisa Page today is out there suing the DOJ. This is the funniest thing to me. Lisa Page is suing because they released her text messages. I just think it's the funniest thing. She actually has the chutzpah to sue over having her text messages with her lover being released to the public, which is just the funniest thing, isn't it? I mean, it's hilarious. So let me get back on track here. So you've got all this happening. You have all this posturing. You have all these people saying, all the people on the left saying, IG report was a nothing burger, da-da-da. Okay, so then fast forward to today, and all of a sudden, Nadler's hearings are done, and the Democrats are announcing that they're going forward with the articles of impeachment. And this hearing was supposed to go on all week, as far as I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong. But all of a sudden, wait, hold on a second. What happened? So we got that happening. And then right after that, Nancy Pelosi announces that they're signing USMCA, some people say the biggest trade deal ever. And so I'm just here to say, if impeachment was even remotely looking like a win for the Democrats, why would they have to do anything to change the narrative? I mean, they went immediately to change the narrative. Do you see that? Why wouldn't they want to run with the narrative? Why wouldn't they want to be posturing all over the media for the next 24 hours about how amazing they are and how they got this mother F impeached, right? Because that's what they've wanted to do from the very first minute he took the oath of office. Do you remember? And this is what the Republicans in the House have been saying, that the only reason that it took this long for impeachment to go through is that they didn't have the House until November of 2018. But it was always the plan, right? Because they tried to get him out with Russia collusion. They tried they tried so hard to get him out with Ukraine, and that didn't work. You see what I mean? Yeah. Paige was hurt. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you conduct a romance over government-issued phones. Your feelings are going to get hurt. It's so funny, the standard that they apply, it only applies to them, right? They're the only ones that can be hurt or offended. They've dragged the president's every action, every word, his family through the mud, but somehow they think that we should care if it hurts her feelings that he is talking about text messages that she exchanged over federally funded communications devices. So, see what I mean? Okay, so I want to go, there's a lot I want to cover, but I want to talk a little bit about Ukraine. I want to talk about Ukraine because has anybody heard anything about Ukraine Have we talked about the whistleblower at all lately? Has that been in the news? I don't watch the news. When was the last time we heard about, was it in the impeachment hearings or was it on the news? Are we talking about that right now? Is that dominating the news cycle? The phone call? The perfect phone call? I don't think it is. Why is that? Why is Ukraine out of the news cycle? Well, I know why Ukraine is out of the news cycle. Because Rudy was in Ukraine last week with One American News. And the news is coming out that not only was Joe Biden involved in a quid pro quo having to do with releasing U.S. aid dollars to stop in exchange for the end of an investigation of Burisma. I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but basically One American News went and Chanel Rion went with Rudy Giuliani, and they interviewed the witnesses that Rudy Giuliani had, the Ukrainians, and they have all the documents. But here's the thing, and Chanel is coming out with more of this because while they were there, they got not only did they get the documentation of what happened in that particular exchange with Joe Biden and his son Hunter and Burisma, but they got more than that. They got more information and documentation about the massive money laundering that's been going on through the Ukraine, not just in this particular case, but in many cases. And so that's what was uncovered during that time. And they've already done 2 parts of a series on One American News, and they're going to be showing the 3rd part this coming Sunday, the 15th at 10 p.m. And so this is really important, you guys. This is really important that you understand this, because this is the big story. This is one of the biggest things that people are missing. And it's because the media is not breathing a word about it. They're not going to allow it to come out. They're not going to allow it to come out because this implicates everybody. This implicates everyone who was in politics for the last 30, 40, 50 years in our country. Because what's been happening is that every single dollar, practically, of aid money that's been leaving our country to go to these so-called struggling countries, all of this aid money, and the aid money that's been going to cities and states like California, protectorates like Puerto Rico, territories, right? All of this aid money gets disseminated and then it's not accounted for. And so what's been happening and what Rudy Giuliani has told us is that Ukraine is the key to unlocking the maze of corruption and money laundering that has been going on for years. And so this is why when Chanel and Rudy Giuliani and their team showed up in Kiev last week, this is why George Soros was at the airport in his limo with his attack dogs in the limo. I'm not making this up. And this is why when One American News and their team was interviewing Rudy Giuliani, was interviewing the witnesses that Rudy Giuliani had, this is why they had to flee Ukraine on a private plane at midnight, because the security forces that are backed by the corrupt politicians in Ukraine and George Soros were closing in on them. I'm not making this up. You can find this on their YouTube channel. But think about that. If you have reporters from the United States who are there to interview witnesses, allegedly for one case, for one story that supposedly implicates our president, Donald Trump, why would people be trying to get rid of them? Why would they be run out of town by these goons? See what I mean? So just think about that. And so this is really important. Just turn the camera around. There we go. I was trying to get rid of that troll. So this is really important that people understand this. There's so much happening that is being just covered up, and it's been covered up for years. And when you get reporters like Chanel Rion, when you get networks that are willing to actually have their journalists do the work, then they're going to uncover these stories. This is why John Solomon and Sarah Carter had to have protective details. This is why people like Sean Hannity get death threats all the time. If these stories were nothing, if our president were in fact guilty, if he were the one guilty of all these crimes, then why would people be trying to stop these reporters, these journalists, from getting the truth? Ask yourself that. Because wouldn't they want them to get the truth? If they were digging into the sources and they were talking to these sources, wouldn't these people want these journalists to find the truth? Because if the truth wasn't going to I'm having a hard time. I'm trying to block, but my fingers are cold and it's not working. You guys block that one troll. But do you understand? So they're actually trying to suppress the truth, because the truth is what's really going to hurt them. I wanted to remind you guys of something, because a lot of people that voted for this president, people voted for him. I'm like in the middle. It's starting to rain. People that voted for him because they saw the corruption. They saw that Republicans in the past weren't getting anything done. They took a chance on this president, and there was an overall feeling of euphoria and elation when President Trump got elected. Of course, there were people who screamed and threw fits and said that it was the end of the world. But for those of us who supported him, we were so relieved. And I keep thinking about I keep thinking about something, and this is really applicable to the supporters of the president. So this is really applicable, and that's this. In the Psalms, in Psalm 126, this is a psalm that was written about the Jews who were held captive by the Babylonians. And then when they were released to go back to Jerusalem, the psalm that was written is Psalm 126. And it said, when the Lord brought back the captive ones of Zion, we were like those awakened from a dream, and our mouths were filled with joyful singing. And we said, the Lord has done great things for us. And I don't know if you guys, I want you to go look that up. It's a really short psalm. But what I keep thinking about that is this, and that is that wasn't the end of the story. and this is what I want you guys to understand. I'm going to see if I can walk. I don't know if it's raining hard because I got to get home. So what I want you to understand is this, is that that when the Jews were brought back into Jerusalem, they were met with great opposition. So they were very happy to be home, to return to their homeland after a 70-year captivity. Many of them who came back to Jerusalem weren't even born there. And so, but they knew that it was their homeland. And so that's a whole nother story. You can read about that in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. But what happened is that they were actually met with a great deal of opposition because opposing political parties had taken over. Jerusalem was not being run as the sacred capital of Israel the way that it should have been. And they had trampled on the law. There's so many parallels to what happened then. The law, nobody even knew the law. The people weren't taught. The ones who were in captivity in Babylon weren't taught the law, the scriptures. The ones that were living in Jerusalem weren't teaching or following the law and the scriptures. And so it was a big mess. And there are many, many parallels to what happened then, between what happened then and between what happened in the time that we're in now. And what I want you to understand is that yes, we had a victory in the ballot box. We elected the president that many, many people wanted, 63 million Americans, and he won the electoral vote. And that was awesome. And it was a great feeling. So many people were happy, and we've been celebrating that for the last 3 years. But it's really important to understand that the fight really was just beginning. Now it's like a full-on storm. I might have to end my stove. Let me see if the rain. Pray for the rain to stop, you guys, because I do want to get home. I was hoping it would hold off. But that's really important to understand. And the reason that I'm talking to you about this right now is because there's so much winning going on. There's so much winning happening on so many fronts, and we're going to keep winning, but it doesn't come without a fight. And that's really important to understand, is that this fight is far from over. And so we fight with our actions, we fight with our words, we fight with our prayers. We certainly don't become violent, because that's not who we are. And but I want you to take heart. I want you to know that it's critical that you don't give up, the fight. And if you look at the story of Nehemiah, it's interesting because the people who were building the wall, who were rebuilding the wall, actually they were building with a tool in one hand and a weapon in the other hand. Hey, Marissa. So that's really important to understand. And what are our weapons? As Christians, our weapons are supernatural, right? We fight because our fight, yes, our fight is here on the ground, but our fight is also in the heavenlies. And so we need to make sure that we are wielding the weapons of prayer, that we're arming ourselves and clothing ourselves with the armor of God every single day. That we're not losing this fight in the battlefield of worry and concern and despair. It's really important that we understand that. And so I just want to make it clear that there was no guarantee the day that the president won, when you woke up on the morning after election day and you found out that he was elected. That was just the beginning of the story. That wasn't the end of the story. And it wasn't, he didn't go in with guns blazing and drain the swamp. That was never what he said he was going to do. If he did that, our country would be completely dissolved into civil war. And Praying Medic wrote a really good thread on his timeline about this, and I want people to go and read it, because he was talking about the process and what happens with the with the IG report and with Huber and Barr, and just the fact that there's so much education that has to take place, and that the president and his law enforcement, they can't just go and round up people. That's not the way it works. We're not Nazis. We literally are not Nazis. And so we can't do that. That's not how justice works in this country. The other thing that he pointed out, though, and this is really important, is that the judiciary had to get straightened out. That the reason that the president has been appointing so many judges is that we have to make sure when these people get arrested and their cases are tried, that they are presided over by honest judges who honor our Constitution. And so, look what happened, like with the travel ban. Look what's happened with a lot of these cases where these dishonest judges, these politically motivated judges in the Ninth Circuit were blocking and putting injunctions on the actions of the president. That's a big problem. And so, and the thing is, in this country, we can't institute double jeopardy. So let's say that we get somebody like Lisa Page, and she's arrested and tried and brought to trial, and then it's thrown out by a dishonest judge. We can't go back and charge her again on the same crime if it was already dismissed. Do you see that? And do you think that AG Barr and President Trump might know that? And so for all of you who are clamoring for arrest, who are saying, but nothing's happening, why aren't these people arrested? Why aren't they locked up in the Crowbar Hotel? I don't understand. Sessions didn't do anything. Ray needs to go. What use is Barr? Why do we have Hoover? All of the people saying that, you don't know what you're talking about. because what I just explained. Without the right judges in place, all of those trials would be moot. And then these people would be walking free, and we wouldn't have the ability to bring them to justice. I hope everybody gets that, because that's really critical. I hope everybody gets it. And then there was something else that I wanted to say about that. Oh, here's the other thing. One of the things that was turned up in the IG report is that, that there were so many missteps, but there were also policies in place that made it possible for these missteps to occur. When I say missteps, I'm saying it facetiously. They broke the laws. They lied. They really went about this in a very shady way. And so that actually brings to question a lot of other cases, a lot of other situations, because the Inspector General is going back and looking and examining the last 15 years of, I believe it's of FISA applications. Is it just FISA or cases in general and the FBI? They're going back 15 years. And so think about this. This is really important to understand. And we've been talking about this for a while. What happens with all those cases that were opened under false pretenses? What happens with those people like General Flynn who were charged for crimes that they did not commit and who were set up? Do you think that, General Flynn is a case that we know about. So for every single case like General Flynn that we know about, how many cases over the last 15 years took place? How many people were prosecuted? How many people lost their livelihoods, their incomes, had to sell everything they had to hire lawyers to defend themselves against baseless charges that were levied against them by a corrupt FBI? That's a big deal. It's a really big deal. Yeah, when you bring in big shot prosecutors like Weissman, who, all their friends end up getting off. But this is the opposite, right? This is the opposite, because people are being charged for crimes and people are being thrown under the bus for crimes they didn't commit. And how do we deal with that? What do? Do we retry them? Talk about a paper trail. This is a big job. It's a really big job. And, these people need to be the cases need to be looked at and examined. And that's what Horowitz is doing. And so if you think that Horowitz is good for nothing and that he didn't do anything, I hope that I may have changed your mind here today, because the fact that he's reopening these cases, that he's going back and looking and examining what happened over the last 15 years, that's a big deal. He could have just walked away and shrugged his shoulders and said, yeah, there was a lot of crazy crap that went down, and, we got to fix it going forward. And that's kind of the spin that that people are putting on it, is that he didn't do anything, that it was a big nothing burger, that he wasted the taxpayers' time and money. That's not true. The other thing I wanted to touch on, back when I was talking about Ukraine and quid pro quo and Rudy Giuliani, and that is this, and that is that Rudy Giuliani is a specialist. He specializes in doing what? Can anybody tell me what he's good at, what he's known for? It is true that people have to spend their own money to file lawsuits. Yeah, so he's known for, yes, bingo, not just prosecuting, but RICO. This is really important. I want you guys to go and look up RICO. I want you to understand what RICO does and why it's important. For starters, each RICO charge can carry 20 years imprisonment, each charge. But there's another thing that is similar to RICO that is even bigger and even more important. And this is another reason that they're gunning for Rudy and trying to tell you that he's lost his marbles. And that is the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Anybody familiar with that? RICO was enacted in 1970. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act was put into place in 1977. And so if you think about what RICO does, one of the characteristics of racketeering and RICO is taking bribes. Well, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act takes that to the next level, because it addresses taking bribes from foreign officials. I don't know, do you think that might be relevant in these cases that we are looking at right now? Does anybody come to mind when we think about the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act? So I want you to go and check that out. You can Google it. It's there. And so it's really important. It's really important that you understand this, that the news and all the comments you see on Facebook and the people that are coming after Rudy Giuliani and saying that he doesn't have anything and trying to discredit him, the reason that they're doing that is because they know, in fact, that he does have something, that he does have the goods, and that he has evidence. Rudy Giuliani, I don't think he's lost a case. He's known for prosecuting the mob. He's known for going after RICO cases and winning them. So that's really important to understand this. See, here we go. We have a troll in here already saying Rudy's not playing with full deck. So we know that you're probably in the wrong place. Here we go. But you see, I gave you an example, and there was one in the chat. Rudy's not playing with full deck. So just keep your eyes on that. Make sure that you're watching Chanel Rion's timeline. It's CHANELRION. Make sure you're following that. Make sure you're following Rudy Giuliani. Make sure that you're watching One American News. The best way to do that is on an app called Cloud TV. It's KLOWD TV. It's like $5 a month. You can rewind and watch the past stories on that app. And you don't have to pay extra to do that. So get caught up make sure that you are caught up on that, because it's really critical, and it's this is not the end of it. It's not going away. 347 on DirecTV. Chanel, Chanelrion, is the reporter, and she's a White House, she's a political correspondent for OAN in Washington, and the app is Cloud TV, KLOWD TV. I support Trump, but I don't support banning other people's with a different opinion. Well, I've been doing this long enough to know when I have trolls in my chat, and so you don't have to ban them, but I will. And if you do a Periscope, you can do it differently. How about that? There have been two hour-long interviews, 2 hour-long interviews that have aired on One American News, and the third one is going to air Sunday night at 10 Eastern. And they will play it on replay, but that's the debut. But they do have some teaser videos up on YouTube talking about what happened when they were in Ukraine and how George Soros showed up and things like that. So I suggest that you set your reminder and make sure you watch that on Sunday night. It's really important. And this is part of the larger story that's at play here. So remember RICO, and remember Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. That's really important. And the other thing that Praying Medic talked about that I wanted to remind everybody of is that, what did he say? He was talking about, statute of limitations. And this is important because a lot of people are saying, by the time we get to prosecute these people, the statute of limitations would have kicked in and they're going to get off scot-free. And Praying Medic brought up a very important point, and he said, well, I think I think AG Barr, being the Attorney General, is familiar with the statutes of limitation. And so he's got this. He's on it. We don't have to worry that he's going to get caught up. We don't have to worry that he's going to get caught up by missing a statute of limitation on these crimes. I think we can trust him. What do you think? I think that's really important. Yeah, there are a lot of players here. And when people tell you that nothing's happening, it's just not true. I mean, many of the people that were investigated and who were mentioned in the IG report have either resigned or forced to leave their positions. Peter Strzok, Andrew McCabe, Lisa Page, who's now suing the DOJ for releasing her text messages. Do you think the president's going to talk about the lovers tonight? I hope he does. Corny. Yeah, I hope he does. I hope he talks about that. The fact that she's suing about the messages. I just think that's classic. That is classic hubris from the left. They think so much of themselves that they absolutely feel that they are justified to sue. It's crazy. I'm suing. It's just so funny. So listen, it's getting dark and I have to go and my hand is getting cold. But suing does open up to discovery, that's for sure. Yep. So does impeachment. Impeachment in the Senate opens up to discovery. So the Democrats are going to wish that they'd never heard the word impeachment. Just like when Trump wins in a landslide, they're going to wish they'd never heard about the popular vote because he's going to win both. And we won't hear another word about abolishing the Electoral College. So keep that in mind. There's so much more I could talk about. I will be back. I will do more scopes. Make sure you're following me. This is This is my channel. It's Mary Grace Media. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Mary Grace Media. Subscribe on Twitter, Periscope, Facebook, and Instagram. But most importantly, please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel because I will be uploading more content there. It's a little time consuming, so just be patient with me. And thank you so much, everybody, for following. And I did have a music scope up on Sunday night, speaking of music, and I'm going to be trying to do those regularly on Sunday nights through the Advent season. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Have a great evening, and get back to me and give me comments about what you think of the president. Oh, one more thing. I have an email address, and I'm working on my website, so you can actually email my Mary Grace Media info@Mary Grace Media. And so if you're not on Twitter, if you don't know how to get in touch with me on Twitter, which is a little bit challenging, you can email info@marygracemedia.com. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.